You're happily using your computer when this happens. Yes, my friends, the Windows stop error, more commonly known as the blue screen of death. The good news is a quick Google search will turn up hundreds of suggested fixes for it. The bad news is that you've probably tried them all and they probably didn't work. If you want to know how to actually fix this, you need to know how to troubleshoot it. So it's a good job I made a video to show you. Welcome back to the Pro Tech Show. This is one of those videos that's going to be useful whether you work in IT or not. If you use Windows, you've probably experienced this at some point. So what is the blue screen of death? It's basically Windows tapping out. It's Windows' way of saying something has gone horribly wrong and I can't recover from it, I'm bailing. The actual cause can be almost anything. It can be a bug in Windows itself, or third-party software, failing hardware, data corruption. Drivers are a big culprit. In fact, do you remember Windows Vista? It quickly gained a reputation for being a crashy, bug-ridden mess. But was it really Vista's fault? Partly, yes. But actually a lot of it wasn't. Microsoft accounted for nearly 18% of crashes, but what about the other 82%? Well, it turns out Nvidia drivers accounted for nearly 30% of all crashes in the first year. Quite impressive considering the large majority of Vista PCs didn't actually have any Nvidia hardware. Not exactly Team Green's finest moment, but Vista took the blame. Because the actual cause of these blue screens can vary wildly, you need to troubleshoot your specific problem on your specific device. If you try random fixes you found on the internet, your chances of success aren't that good because you're basically hoping to win the crash lottery. That said, let's get some low-hanging fruit out of the way. I know a lot of the people who watch this channel are much more experienced with computers than the average person, and may be more inclined to tweaking as a result. If you've tweaked anything into a non-standard state, if you've overclocked your hardware or undervolted it, then before you do anything else, return it to stock settings. You will kick yourself later if you spend hours troubleshooting Windows only to find out it was your own unstable overclock that caused it. So take that out of the equation right from the start. You might want to try unplugging any non-essential USB devices as well. Faulty hardware can cause blue screens, so if you can easily pull a few cables to rule that out, go for it. Obviously, if you know you did something to cause the blue screen, undo it. If you installed something just before it crashed, uninstall it. If you can't do that because Windows crashes before you get that far, stick around because I'll be showing you what to do about that later. Another thing that's always worth trying is installing any available software and driver updates. You might get lucky and find a vendor has already issued a fix. Do not, I repeat, do not attempt to update your BIOS unless you know that is actually the fix. If your computer crashes partway through that process, you may not be able to recover it without physically replacing the hardware. I'm going to assume none of those suggestions fixed it for you though, because otherwise this video is basically over. I'm also going to make an assumption for now that you can boot into Windows. If your computer is crashing before you get to Windows, I will cover that later in the video as well. The first thing we need to do is gather some information. On the blue screen itself there should be a stop code, and it might even tell you what file caused the error. Make a note of that because it's a clue to the cause of the problem. If you missed it, don't worry, we can still find out what it said. To do that, we need to take a look in the event log. An easy way to get to this is to right-click in your Start menu and select Event Viewer. From there, expand Windows Logs and select System. There's going to be a lot of information in here, but we're looking for a specific entry. The event level will be Error, the source will be Bug Check, and the event ID will be 1001. The time of the event should be just after your computer started back up. You can filter the log to find it more easily, but it can be useful to see all of the events surrounding it. If you can spot where the crash occurred, you can have a look at events in the system and application logs around the time of the crash to see if they give you any clues. It is fairly normal to see a number of warnings and errors in here, so don't panic. But if you see something consistently erroring out immediately before a crash, you might want to take a look into that particular message a bit more closely. Whatever application logged it might be the source of your problems. For now though, back to our bug check event. If you read the detail, it will say the bug check was, followed by a bunch of numbers and letters starting with 0x. Take that first set of numbers and letters before the brackets. That is the hexadecimal error code that matches the error on the blue screen. If you pop that into Google, you can find out what the blue screen said. I'll link a list of possible values in the video description to save you googling them all though. That error code might be enough to point you in the right direction. Most of the time it'll probably lead you towards a driver issue, which isn't particularly useful because it can still be almost anything at that point. You might get lucky though and have a more specific error. If it mentions a file system, for example, then it's talking about your hard drive. A file system error could be caused by a storage driver, a failing drive, a failing storage controller, which for most home users would mean your motherboard, or it could be file system corruption. If it's a disk, you need to back it up and replace it ASAP. If it's file system corruption, well, a lot of the time file system corruption will actually prevent Windows from booting, so I'm going to cover that one later in the video when I talk about what to do if Windows won't boot. The most likely outcome in my experience though, is that your error code will lead you towards a driver problem. The next step therefore is to figure out which driver caused the crash, and the event log probably won't be enough to tell you. For that we're going to need a dump. A memory dump. Usually this will be created automatically when Windows blue screens, but you might need to enable this first, then wait for it to crash again. To check if memory dumps are enabled, right-click in your Start menu and select System. The interface here has changed a bit in recent updates for Windows, but you're looking for the Advanced System Settings option. This is probably on the right-hand side or the bottom of the page. If you're running an older version of Windows, you might have already landed straight at this location. If it says System Properties in the title, you're in the right place. On the Advanced tab, click the Settings button under Startup and Recovery. Under the Right Debugging Information section, make sure the drop-down isn't set to None. If it is, change it to Automatic Memory Dump. Then OK your way back to the desktop. With that set, your computer will generate a memory dump the next time it blue screens. Depending on what option you selected, you might get a large dump file located at C Windows memory.dump. That will have the most debugging information. If that file doesn't exist, the other place you can look is in C Windows mini dump for a smaller dump file that also gets created. Okay, we've got our dump. How do we use it? Analysing a memory dump can get quite technical, but I'm going to show you some simple steps to get a bit of useful information from it. There are some websites you can upload these to, but I don't recommend that. A memory dump can contain whatever was in your computer's memory, and that could mean sensitive or personal information. To be safe, do the analysis yourself. If you're a home user, the easiest thing to do is install a tool called Whocrashed. I'll link it in the video description. This is free for home use, but if you're doing this for a business, you have to pay. Don't worry, I'll show you another tool that's free for everyone in just a minute. The reason I'm suggesting this tool is simply because it's really easy to use without any technical knowledge. Just open it, click the Analyze button. It will find your memory dump files, do a quick analysis, and give you a readable enough summary. If you look at my example here, you can see it has found that IRQ level error code that we saw before, and it reckons the file myfault.sys caused the problem. It goes on to tell you that that file belongs to a product called sysinternals myfault. If you're wondering what the heck that is, it's a tool called Not My Fault by sysinternals that deliberately crashes your computer by creating an unrecoverable driver fault. Not a piece of software you'd normally want to use, but perfect if you want to deliberately crash a computer so you can record a video showing people how to troubleshoot it. Now that Whocrashed tool is really easy to use, but it's not free for commercial use. There is a tool from Microsoft you can use for free anywhere, and it will give you more information as well. That tool is called the Windows Debugger, or WinDBG, or WinDebug. You may have come across this before and remembered it being a pain to find and use. You had to find the Windows Software Development Kit, download it, then untick every single box other than debugging tools for Windows because you only actually wanted that tiny piece of a fairly large package of tools. Then once you'd installed it, you had to configure your symbol path and you ended up with this archaic looking thing. Don't do that. There's a better way. Open the Microsoft Store and search for WinDBG. You'll find a modern replacement that's just better and still free. At the time of recording, it's still in preview, but don't mess about with the software development kit, just install this one. For completeness, I'll put links to both in the video description. While you're down there, go on and click that like button and subscribe if you haven't yet. When you open WinDebug, remember to run as administrator. The tool itself doesn't actually need administrator permissions to function, but the location your memory dumps are created in is only accessible to administrators, so this will just make life easier for you. The first nice feature you'll notice if you use the old tool is that it automatically detects a recent crash and asks if you want to open the dump. Yes, I do. If it hadn't detected the dump file automatically, you'd load it by clicking on the File menu and selecting Open Dump File under Start Debugging. Wait for it to warm up a bit, and when you see this blue text that says !analyze-v, you're ready to go. Click on that text and wait for it to do its thing. You'll see a progress bar at the bottom while it's running, another improvement over the old one. This tool spits out a lot more technical information than the last one I showed, but you can easily enough pull out some of the same details. Here we have our IRQ error level from before, and if you scroll down, we're looking for this bit where it gives you the module name with the image name. The image name is the file that caused the crash. We can see the same file name, myfault.sys, as before. If we click on the underlying module name, it may spit back a bit more information about the product it belongs to. In this case, it hasn't given us much new information, but as long as we know the name of the file, we can pop it into Google and figure out what it is. There we go, it's a sysinternals tool called Not My Fault. A bit more work to get the information and with the Who Crashed tool, but not that difficult if you don't want to pay for it in a business use case or you simply don't want to install a third-party tool. The additional information provided by WinDBG can also be helpful for trickier issues. Let me cause a different type of crash this time. Running that one through Who Crashed points the finger of blame at the NT kernel. That's Windows itself. Although Windows did crash, it crashed because I did something bad to it, so this isn't actually that helpful. If I run WinDBG against it, it shows the same fault in image name, but if I scroll back up and look at the process name, I can see what really caused it. WinDBG doesn't try to give you the answer quite as clearly, but the additional information can be helpful if you don't get anywhere with Who Crashed. That said, sometimes WinDebug will output a line that says probably caused by. If you see that in the text it spits out, definitely pay attention to it. So now we know what driver caused our crash, what's next? Well, it depends what the driver's for. If it's not actually something you need, you might simply uninstall the driver software or remove the offending device and the problem goes away. Assuming it is something you need, you should check in the manufacturer's website for a newer version. It might be that you've updated Windows and the driver you had is no longer compatible, but downloading the latest version might fix it. That's actually quite common. You might need to do a bit of research here. It could be that this driver has a conflict with something else in your computer. Your best bet is to stuff a few search terms into Google like crash and the name of the driver to see if anyone else is reporting similar problems, and hopefully a fix. The final thing you should bear in mind with drivers is that they're usually written to provide an interface between Windows and a physical hardware component. A driver that keeps crashing is often a software problem, but it can also indicate a hardware failure. The software might be crashing because the hardware it's talking to has malfunctioned. If your graphics driver crashes, for example, it could mean that your graphics card is dying. Once you get into the realm of physical hardware, you can go down a rabbit hole. Your graphics driver could be crashing because your graphics card malfunctioned, but your graphics card might have malfunctioned because your power supply is undersized and couldn't supply it with enough power under load. If it was right in the edge before, then simple aging might have pushed it over. When it gets to troubleshooting hardware, you generally end up using a process of elimination by removing or replacing components one at a time until you find the problem. But at least the crash dump will have given you a place to start rather than going in blind and hoping for the best. Honestly though, for the ones I've dealt with, going onto the manufacturer's website and installing the latest version of the driver found in the crash dump fixes a problem more often than not. Hardware failures definitely happen, but software bugs are more common. But what if your computer won't actually boot? These tools I've showed you rely on you actually getting into Windows to run them, right? The first thing you can try is booting into safe mode. You used to be able to mash F8 during startup to get there, but that doesn't work on a modern system. After Windows has repeatedly tried to load and failed though, it should present you with the option automatically. You might be able to force this as well by holding the power button to do an instant power off whilst it's booting a couple of times, but if you're at the point where Windows won't boot, you should get the option automatically. Here's how it came up for me. From here, I'll hit F8 for startup settings, and 4 or 5 to enable safe mode with or without networking. Safe mode loads Windows with a minimal set of drivers and services, so if something is crashing so badly that Windows can't even start, this might get you around it and let you continue your troubleshooting. Safe mode without networking is safer, as it doesn't load your network drivers. This could be handy if the network drivers are the ones causing the crash, but it also means you have no network, so no internet to download updated drivers. You'll have to do it on another computer and put them on a USB drive. If safe mode lets you boot up, you've probably got a driver issue or some dodgy software loading automatically at startup. If you type msconfig into the start menu, you can selectively disable different components from starting automatically. You can use a trial and error approach to try starting up with different components enabled until you figure out which one caused the crash. This can take a while, I'm afraid. But what if you're blue screening before you even get into safe mode? It may just be properly broken at this point, but a lot of the time this is a symptom of file system corruption. I told you we'd be getting back to this one, remember? If you can't boot into safe mode, then you're going to need to boot into something to fix this. Go to another computer and use the Windows 10 Media Creation tool to create a Windows 10 USB install drive or DVD. Link in the description, of course. Take this back to your knackered computer and boot from the USB or DVD you created. You may need to change some settings in your BIOS to do this, but usually there'll be a message that pops up briefly when you start your computer telling you to press a specific key to get to the boot menu. It will usually be one of the function keys like F12, or it could be the escape key or the delete key. Once the Windows setup loads, select your language and click Repair Your Computer over in the bottom left. Click Troubleshoot. Now if I just interrupt my own train of thought for a moment here, if you know that you changed some software and that caused the blue screen, you can use the System Restore option on this page to revert your system settings to before that change, assuming the necessary option was enabled before you made the change. Let's continue fixing our file system corruption though. Click Troubleshoot, then Command Prompt. If Windows is booting fine at this point, then you don't need a special boot drive. You can open a command prompt by typing CMD into the start menu and running as administrator. The command you need to run file system repairs is checkdisk, spelled CHKDSK, C:, assuming Windows is on the C drive. Sometimes when you boot from another drive, your drive letters get messed around and Windows might be on something other than C. An easy way to check is to type bcdedit and hit enter. Have a look under Windows Bootloader, and if it says partition equals something other than C:, then replace C in these commands with that letter instead. Just running checkdisk by itself won't fix anything, it will just check for corruption. To fix it, you need to run checkdisk C:/F. If you've booted from a USB or DVD, this will run now. If you've actually booted Windows, it can't run this repair now because the drive is in use, so it will schedule the repair to run when you next reboot. If you have a mechanical hard drive rather than an SSD, I recommend running checkdisk C:/R instead of /F. This will run a more extensive repair that will attempt to recover bad sectors. It will take a lot longer, but I've seen this fix blue screens that a standard /F repair won't. If the act of running checkdisk causes the computer to crash, then I'm afraid the most likely explanation is that your hard drive is failing. Get any data off it ASAP because it's only a matter of time before you lose it. A good way to do this is to create a Linux Live USB or Live CD to boot from and use it to read the drive from outside of Windows and copy the data somewhere else. How to do that is outside the scope of this video, but if it's something you'd like to see, then drop me a message in the comments. One final thing you might try here, and I hesitate to suggest this because if you go on a support forum, you will see this suggested as a fix for almost every problem imaginable. I swear there's some person who just copy-pastes the same suggestion onto every single post because they've got nothing better to do. From the command prompt, you can try running sfc/scannow. That will scan for it and repair some system files. I have literally never seen that command fix anything ever, but it presumably worked for somebody somewhere once that they feel the need to post it as a suggested answer to every single question that has ever been asked. If you're running this, having booted from USB or DVD, it's a bit more complicated of a command that's needed, but the information is in bcdedit that I showed you before. The full command you'll need is sfc/scannow/offbootdir equals C:///offwindir equals C://Windows. Replace C with a partition letter from bcdedit and /Windows with the system root from bcdedit if they're different. And with that last act of desperation, I'm going to wrap this one up. If you follow these steps, it should help you fix most blue screens of death, but ultimately you may come to a point that needs some hands-on expertise rather than a YouTube video. If you're still stuck, go get some help. Take it to the shop or someone you trust. Blue screens can have some really weird causes, so why don't you let me know in the comments what is the weirdest cause of a blue screen of death you've ever seen? I'm honestly a bit scared of what I might see in the comments now, but come on, surprise me. If you found this video useful, give it a like and consider subscribing if you haven't already done so. Also, click on one of these because I know you're not ready to just let me go yet. I'm going to leave it there for now. Thanks for watching guys, see you next time.